"Move him away from the front room," Linda Carver said, pointing at Zeke Hayes, as if he were a problem to solve instead of a man waiting to be honored. "He smells like medicine, and that old uniform makes the whole room feel heavy." The elderly black veteran held the folded flag closer to his chest. "Can he even hear us?" one aide said with a careless laugh. Zeke lowered his eyes to the floor. He gave no answer. Residents watched from their wheelchairs, quiet and uncomfortable. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Then Linda reached toward the wooden box in his lap. Zeke's hands shook around it, but he held on. She smiled as if it were clutter. No one in that room knew the men arriving at noon were coming to stand for him. 4 hours before the front room went silent, Ezekiel Hayes opened his eyes in room 214. The ceiling above him was pale yellow. The heater clicked twice. A cart rattled somewhere outside his door. Pills in paper cups, rubber wheels, soft shoes. The morning shift had begun. Zeke did not move at first. He listened. He always listened before he stood, like the world still needed clearing before a man stepped into it. A thin gray light sat across his blanket. Beyond the window, a flag moved over the nursing home lawn. It pulled once in the Georgia wind, then settled, then pulled again. Zeke watched it for a long time. His right hand rested on the sheet. The fingers trembled. It was small, just enough for him to notice. He closed them slowly, one by one, until the shaking hid inside his fist. On the wall beside his bed hung a calendar from a local pharmacy. Most days were blank. This Friday was not. A small black circle sat around the date. Under it, in handwriting that leaned left, were 2 words: Daniel's Day. Zeke stared at the words until the room blurred. He did not cry. Those tears had left him years ago, somewhere between the last salute and the first night he woke up calling a name that could no longer answer. He sat up slowly. The bed rail squeaked under his palm. His knees took longer than his mind. That was the part people missed. They saw the pause and called it confusion. They saw the tremor and called it weakness. They saw the silence and filled it with whatever made them comfortable. Zeke let them. Correcting strangers took strength. Saving memory took more. His slippers waited under the bed, lined up the way he had left them. He lowered both feet into them. The floor was cold through the soles. On the nightstand sat a plastic cup, a clock, a folded napkin, and a wooden box with brass corners worn smooth by thumbs. The box was darker near the latch. His hand had lived there for years. Zeke reached for the cardigan hanging on the chair. It was gray, stretched at the elbows, clean but old. His left hand found the first button. His right hand missed it. Once. Twice. He stopped, breathed through his nose, and tried again. The button slipped through, then the next, then the next. The last one stayed open. He let it stay. He turned toward the box. For a moment, he only looked at it. The room seemed to narrow around that square of wood. The air changed. It felt heavier, the way memory can change the weight of a room. He placed 2 fingers on the lid, not opening it yet. Inside were things no nurse had ever asked about. A folded flag, a small photograph, a ring with a scratched crest, a letter creased so often the paper had softened like cloth. He opened the drawer instead. From beneath a pair of socks, he took out the photograph. 2 young black soldiers stood in dust, grinning like boys who thought the world would let them grow old together. Zeke was on the left. Daniel Price was on the right. Daniel had one hand on Zeke's shoulder. Zeke touched that hand in the picture. A light knock came at the door. Maya Brooks leaned in with a tray. "Morning, Mr. Hayes. You need help today." Zeke turned the photograph face down before she could see it. He gave her a small nod, then pointed to the flag outside. Maya followed his eyes. "Yes, sir," she said softly. "It's a pretty morning." Zeke looked back at the circled date. No, not pretty. Important. He knew what waited after breakfast, and what must remain hidden today. He remembered. Down the hall, from room 214, morning pines looked awake in all the wrong ways. Fluorescent lights buzzed over polished floors. A lemon cleaner smell covered the medicine underneath. Staff moved fast, not kindly, carrying clipboards, linen bags, and trays of paper cups. Someone had straightened every chair in the activity room. Someone else had turned the old piano toward the window. The American flag stood in the corner, brushed clean, its brass eagle shining under the light. On the wall beside it, a crooked bulletin board read, "Veterans Appreciation Week." The tape had started peeling. Linda Carver came through the double doors with a tablet under one arm. Her shoes clicked hard. Her badge sat straight. Her smile did not. She stopped at the front desk and looked across the lobby like she owned the air. "Today matters, people. We have visitors coming. I want this place calm, bright, and presentable. Troy, move those walkers from the hallway. Janet, replace the coffee urn. Maya, check every room facing the garden. Do we understand? Nobody asked who the visitors were. Linda liked it that way. Questions slowed things down. Questions made staff look nervous. She tapped her tablet and opened the morning schedule. A message sat near the top, sent from the administrator 2 days earlier. Ceremony coordination. Honor guests. Military contact. Linda read the words quickly. Too quickly. She saw ceremony and thought display. She saw guests and thought inspection. She saw military and thought photo opportunity. Her thumb flicked down before her eyes reached the name beneath. In the activity room, Maya Brooks adjusted a row of folding chairs near the piano. She was still new enough to ask before moving anything. On a small printed program, she noticed a name set apart from the others. Sergeant Zeke Hayes. The letters made her pause. She had just left him with his cardigan half buttoned and that quiet look in his eyes. Why would Mr. Hayes be printed here? She lifted the paper closer. Linda took it from her hand. Not now. Maya blinked. I just thought maybe this seat was for him. Linda looked toward the garden doors. Every seat is for whoever makes us look organized. She slid the program onto the piano bench. Then she pointed at the window ledge. Dust. Fix that. Maya opened her mouth. Linda's stare closed it. By the front desk, a cream envelope waited beside the sign and book. It carried a stiff seal and Zeke's full name. Linda picked it up, broke it open, and scanned the first line. Confirmation of ceremony. She smiled, relieved. Good. They were coming. The room would look perfect. The cameras would see clean floors. The guests would see order. The administrator would see control. Linda folded the letter once and slid it under her tablet without reading further. The name below it waited in black ink, but Linda had read only the first line. Morning Pines had a way of looking gentle from the parking lot. White columns, trimmed hedges. Families saw that first. They did not see the back hallway where paint had chipped. They did not hear televisions behind half-open doors. They did not notice how often a name could disappear in a place full of name tags. By mid-morning, Zeke Hayes sat near the garden window in the east wing. His chair faced the flagpole outside. The grass beyond the glass was wet from sprinklers. A robin hopped along the walkway, stopped, then flew off. Zeke watched it go. His wooden box rested against his left knee. One hand stayed on the lid. His hand rested there the way a guard stays at a door. A nurse passed with a cart of paper cups. She checked room numbers, not faces. Mr. Watkins needed orange pills. Mrs. Ellis needed drops. Someone in 209 refused breakfast again. The cart stopped near Zeke, then rolled past. No one said his name. He did not ask them to. The box stayed still. His hand did not. Across the hall, a game show played too loud. Applause spilled through the doorway, thin and fake. Two residents argued over a crossword. A man in a Braves cap slept with his mouth open. A woman in a pink robe asked where her daughter was. Staff answered gently the first time, less gently the second. By the third, they pretended not to hear. Zeke heard everything. He heard the call buttons. He heard Linda's shoes at the far end. He heard Maya's steps near the linen cart. He heard the flag rope tapping outside. Every tap pulled his eyes back. Every tap made his shoulders rise. On the wall behind him hung framed photographs of local veterans. Most were crooked. One frame held a young sailor. Another held a smiling woman in uniform. A third had no picture at all, only faded tape marks. Under the display sat red, white, and blue pins. Half of them had fallen sideways. No one fixed them. Zeke looked at the empty frame longest. His own picture was not there. He had never given them one. When the activities director asked months earlier, he had smiled and said nothing. "Seen nothing." She wrote declined beside his name. The old man was quiet. The old man had no stories. The old man did not participate, so the wall stayed almost full. Almost. A burst of music came from the lobby television. The anthem, faint but clear. Zeke's head lifted. His hand left the box. Slowly, with one palm on the armrest, he pushed himself up. His knees shook before they straightened. His cardigan hung unevenly. The last button was still open. It took him several seconds to stand. Around him, the room kept moving as if nothing important had happened. Only Mrs. Ellis noticed. She turned from her puzzle and watched him face the window. Zeke did not sing. He only stood with both hands at his sides, chin raised, eyes on the flag outside. Then his right hand moved. It rose carefully, as if pain had weight. It stopped near his brow. The fingers trembled. The salute held. An aide came through carrying towels. She slowed, saw him standing. then glanced at the television. "Oh," she said under her breath. Then Troy called her name. She hurried on. The salute remained. No one looked. When the anthem ended, Zeke lowered his hand. He sat back down slowly, 1 inch at a time. His breath came hard, but he kept it quiet. He pulled the wooden box closer and set it across his lap. The brass latch caught a strip of window light. For a second, it shone bright enough to look new. Zeke covered it with his palm. At the nurse's station, charts changed hands. Linda's voice cut through the hall, neat and sharp. Zeke looked toward the sound but did not move. He had learned long ago that some orders were spoken as if people were furniture. Maya passed the doorway and slowed. She saw him sitting upright, box on his knees, eyes on the flag. She almost stepped in. Then Linda called her from the front desk. Maya looked back once. Zeke gave no sign. He asked for nothing. The hallway swallowed her footsteps and the room settled around him again. Outside, the flag pulled hard in the wind. Zeke's thumb moved over the box. Back and forth, back and forth. The rest of him stayed still, like a man waiting for a name he was not sure anyone would remember. Linda stopped beside the nurse's station mirror and adjusted her badge. She pinched the collar of her navy blazer. Then she smoothed her hair with 2 quick strokes. Behind her, Janet pushed a laundry cart past the desk. Linda glanced at the wrinkled towels. Those cannot sit there. Not today. Janet froze. The hallway must look clean from both ends. Move them to storage. Maya came around the corner with fresh water. She held the pitcher with both hands. Her shoes were soft on the floor. She slowed when she saw Zeke by the window. His shoulders were straight. His box rested on his lap. The flag outside moved again. Maya watched his eyes follow it. She did not see a confused man. She saw a man waiting for something. Linda saw the same picture and frowned. Why is he still out here? Maya looked back. Mr. Hayes likes the window. Linda tapped her tablet against her palm. I did not ask what he likes. We have guests coming. We need residents calm, neat, and easy to manage. Maya shifted the pitcher. He is calm. Linda gave her a thin smile. Then keep him that way. Maya stepped closer to Zeke. Mr. Hayes, do you need anything? His hand moved once on the box. He shook his head. He was not angry or afraid. He simply seemed to have answered the question long before she asked it. Maya noticed the open cardigan button. She bent slightly. May I fix that for you? Zeke looked at her, then gave a small nod. She fastened it gently. Linda watched from 5 feet away. Her mouth tightened. Do not make this personal, Maya. We provide care. We do not collect stories. Maya straightened. I only fixed his sweater. Linda leaned closer, voice low. You are still on probation. Feelings make slow employees. Slow employees make mistakes. Mistakes go in charts. Maya's face changed, but her hand stayed steady. Yes, ma'am. Zeke heard every word. He did not look up. Look. Linda moved past them and checked the room doors. She tugged one curtain straight. She lifted a tissue box and looked under it. She told a resident to sit up. She told another to lower the television. Her voice stayed polite enough for cameras, cold enough for everyone else. In her head, the residents were chairs to align, spills to wipe, noises to reduce. People became tasks. Tasks became check marks. Maya returned to the station and set down the pitcher. A stack of resident charts sat beside the sign in book. The top sheet had room numbers, diets, allergies, family contacts. Her eyes moved down the page. Watkins, Ellis, Hayes. Beside his name, someone had typed a note in small letters. Ceremony participant. Do not relocate without approval. Maya touched the edge of the paper. Linda reached across the counter and slid another folder over it. Chart review later. Dust. Now. Maya pulled her hand back, but the words stayed with her. Ceremony participant. Do not relocate. She looked toward the window. Zeke was still there, quiet as wood, facing the flag. Above the note, under service history, 2 words waited in plain type. Sergeant Hayes. Her breath caught, and Linda never noticed standing right behind her. The activity room smelled like weak coffee and polish. Sunlight crossed the vinyl chairs in narrow bars. A plate of cookies sat untouched. The old piano waited by the window. Beside it stood the flag, taller than everyone there. Zeke entered from the east hallway. His wooden box stayed against his ribs. His eyes went to the flag first. Maya walked beside him, not touching him. She knew better now. Zeke hated being pulled. He accepted help only when his body asked first. Linda stood near the refreshment table, checking napkins. Troy balanced a tray of cups. Janet wiped the same counter twice. Two residents watched silent morning news. Mrs. Ellis followed Zeke with eyes. Zeke stopped near the piano. The flag had been pushed too close. Its lower edge brushed a waste bin. He stared at it. Then he stepped forward. One hand left the box. The other held the chair back. He reached for the flag stand, slow and careful. His fingers found the brass pole. Linda turned at once. "Mr. Hayes, do not touch that." Zeke did not answer. He moved the stand from the waste bin. The pole scraped the floor. A paper cup trembled on the table. Troy looked over. "What is he doing?" Zeke steadied the pole. His hand shook, but the flag stopped leaning. "Did you hear me?" Linda asked. Zeke looked at her. He looked at the flag. Then he said, "It should not touch waste." His voice was low, rusty, barely used. A resident near the television lowered her knitting. Maya took one step toward him. Linda gave a short laugh. "This room is prepared for guests. You do not rearrange displays." Zeke's hand remained on the pole. "It is not a display," he said. "It is the flag." Troy smirked behind the cups. Janet looked away too fast. The word sat in the room. Linda's smile thinned. Maya said, "He only moved it away." Linda lifted one finger. "Did I ask you?" Maya stopped. Zeke lowered his hand from the pole. He reached for his box again. The lid tapped softly against his cardigan. 3 tiny sounds. Tap, tap, tap. Linda crossed the room. Her shoes clicked harder with each step. "Mr. Hayes, is this your room?" Zeke turned his head toward the chairs. The nearest seat had a paper sign, "Reserved." He did not sit there. He chose the plain chair beside it. That made Linda angrier. The rule itself was not what bothered Linda. What bothered her was that he had chosen without asking. She picked up the reserve sign. Then she looked at Maya. "Why is he here?" Maya held her breath. "He comes here most mornings." Linda blinked once. "Is today most mornings?" Zeke placed the box on his lap. His right hand hovered above it. The trembling had grown worse. A cup near Troy's tray slid sideways. Zeke flinched at the sound. His elbow touched the refreshment table. The corner shifted. Coffee rippled inside the urn. One cup tipped over. Brown liquid ran across the cloth. No one moved. Linda looked at the spill, then at Zeke. Her face changed slowly, like a door locking. "This is exactly what I mean." Zeke stared at the coffee spreading toward the cookies. He reached for a napkin. Linda slapped her palm on the table. "Do not make it worse." Maya grabbed paper towels. "It is fine. I can clean it." Linda snapped her eyes toward her. "Did I ask you to clean?" Maya froze with the towels in her hand. The television kept flickering. Mrs. Ellis whispered something no one answered. Troy smiled like he had permission. Linda leaned closer to Zeke. "Do you understand what today is?" Zeke looked past her at the flag. His mouth moved once before sound came. "Yes." Linda laughed through her nose. "Then act like it." The words landed softly. That made them worse. Zeke folded his hands over the box. He did not defend himself. He did not explain the flag. He did not mention the date. He only looked down at the spill, then back at the pole. Maya saw his jaw tighten. Linda saw only an old man in her way. The room saw both. Nobody said it. Linda picked up the soaked tablecloth by 2 corners. Coffee dripped onto the tile. She held it away from her blazer, lips pressed thin. "This is why we have procedures." She did not look at Zeke when she said it. She looked at Maya. "Procedures keep residents safe. Procedures keep rooms orderly. Procedures keep small problems from becoming public ones." Zeke sat with both hands on his box. The spill had missed him. It had missed the flag. Still, Linda acted like he had broken something larger. She folded the wet cloth once, then dropped it into Troy's empty tray. "Mr. Hayes will return to his room." Maya turned. "Right now." Linda smiled without warmth. "Before the visitors arrive." Maya lowered the paper towels. He was not trying to cause trouble. Linda stepped closer. Intent is not the issue. Presentation is the issue. This room needs to look calm. It needs to look clean. It needs to look controlled. She glanced at Zeke's cardigan, his shaking hands, his old slippers. Then her eyes moved to the wooden box. "And some things do not belong up front." The words were soft. That made them worse. Mrs. Ellis looked down at her knitting. "Oh, honey. Tang." Troy pretended to stack cups. Janet wiped the counter again. Nobody spoke. Zeke heard all of it. His thumb moved once along the brass latch. He did not open the box. He did not defend it. Maya took one careful breath. "His name is on today's schedule." Linda turned slowly. "What did you say?" Maya pointed toward the piano bench, where the printed program still sat. Mr. Hayes, I saw it earlier. Maybe he is supposed to stay here. Linda crossed to the bench and snatched up the program. Her eyes found the first page. Welcome guests, ceremony seating, refreshments, photos after remarks. She did not turn it over. This is a general resident event. Linda set the paper down. You are new, Maya. Do not invent meaning because a name looks official. Maya's face tightened. It said Sergeant. Linda's smile disappeared. Titles on old charts do not run this facility. I do. Zeke lifted his eyes then. Just once. Linda noticed. She liked that even less. She pointed toward the hallway. Mr. Hayes, we are not debating this. Your room. Now. Zeke's fingers closed around the box. The brass latch caught the light again. Linda's eyes narrowed. For the first time, she really looked at what he was holding. Then she saw the box. The box was small, but it changed her posture. Linda stared at the brass latch, then at Zeke's hands. He held it the way some men hold breath underwater. Careful, necessary. She did not ask what was inside. That would have made it human. You can take that with you, she said, but not in here. This room is for the program. Zeke looked toward the piano. The flag stood beside it. Straight now, no longer touching the waste bin. A chair in the front row still carried no name card. The empty space waited. Maya stepped between the table and Zeke. I can walk him back. Linda nodded once. Good. Keep the hallway clear. Maya heard the words under the words. Hide him. Move him. Make him smaller. She swallowed them anyway. Her job sat behind her teeth. Zeke pushed his chair back. The legs scraped softly. He rose without arguing. His left hand clutched the box. His right hand closed around the ring on his finger. Honneur! Maya saw his thumb press the worn metal hard enough to whiten his knuckle. He looked at the flag again. For a moment, nobody moved. Mrs. Ellis stopped knitting. Troy stopped stacking cups. Janet stood with the wet cloth in both hands. Linda waited, pleased with the quiet. She thought the room had obeyed her. She thought the problem was leaving. Zeke took one step toward the hallway, then another. Maya stayed beside him, close but not touching. At the doorway, he turned his head. He did not look at Linda or at the spill. He looked at the flag. His lips moved once, but no sound came. The room may have looked cleaner without him, but that was the lie. What it needed was not his absence. It needed the truth he carried. Maya walked beside Zeke through the east hallway, one step behind. She kept her hands near his elbow, not on it. Linda's rule followed them like a draft. Keep the hallway clear, keep the room presentable, keep the old man out of sight. Zeke moved slowly but not lost. His feet knew the path, his eyes stayed forward. The wooden box pressed against his chest. Room 214 was dim when they entered. The curtains had fallen halfway closed. The air smelled of soap, cotton sheets, and the cold water sitting untouched on the tray. Maya set the fresh pitcher on the nightstand. Ice clicked against plastic. Zeke lowered himself onto the bed with care. It was the careful way a man moves when his body has learned to argue with him. The box stayed in his lap. Do you want this on the table? Maya asked. Zeke looked at the table, then at the box. His fingers tightened. No. One word. Low and rough. Maya nodded as if he had given a long answer. She did not ask again. She poured water into the cup, placed it near his left hand, and turned toward the closet. The closet door would not close. A sleeve had caught in the hinge. Maya opened it gently and saw the old army jacket hanging inside. It was olive green, faded at the shoulders, with one missing button and a torn lining near the cuff. A patch clung to the sleeve, edges curled from age. The letters were worn thin. The letters were still there, only tired from age. Maya touched the fabric with 2 fingers. Her father had kept a jacket like that in a box under his bed. He never let anyone wash it. He said some cloth carried names. Maya swallowed and looked back. Zeke watched her from the bed. His face did not change, but his thumb moved over the wooden lid. I am not taking it, she said. Zeke breathed out through his nose. Almost a laugh. Almost nothing. Maya lifted the sleeve away from the hinge. Something slid from the pocket and tapped the floor. A small plastic frame, face down. Maya picked it up before thinking. The frame was cracked at one corner. Dust sat under the glass. She turned it over. 2 young soldiers looked back at her from a sunburned road, both smiling like the picture had been taken before bad news learned their names. Zeke stood on the left. Younger, stronger, straight-backed. The man beside him had his arm around Zeke's shoulder. On the back, written in blue ink, were 3 words. Daniel and Zeke. The last letter had faded. Maya looked at the old man. Who is Daniel? Zeke's eyes closed. For a second, the room held its breath. Then he opened them again and reached for the frame. Maya handed it over with both hands. Zeke did not answer the question. He turned the photograph toward himself. His thumb covered Daniel's name, then moved away from it. Like even touch had to be careful. The cart outside rolled past. Someone laughed at the nurse's station. The sounds belonged to another building. Maya noticed another mark on the jacket, a small, dark line near the inside collar. She leaned closer. Initials had been stitched there by hand. Daniel Price. The thread was uneven, old, personal. Daniel Price, she thought, though no one had said it. The name felt heavier than a guess. A call bell chimed down the hall. Maya should have left. She knew that. Linda would count minutes. Linda counted everything that made people afraid. But Maya stayed where she was, standing between the closet and the bed, holding the sleeve like it might fall apart. Zeke set the photograph on the box. Then he spoke without looking up. Do not let her throw it away. Maya looked at the jacket. The box. He nodded once, the jacket too. His eyes moved to the closet, then to the photograph. Everything. The word came out quiet. It carried a whole room behind it. Her fingers found one more thing inside the pocket. A folded strip of paper. No letterhead at all. No official stamp either. Just a line pressed into the crease. Keep him remembered. Maya did not unfold it further. Or she already felt like she had opened too much. Maya felt the first clear fear then. Not of Linda. Of missing what was right in front of her. A man did not guard junk like that. A man did not tremble over waste. A man did not sit beside a flag all morning by accident. She looked at the photograph again. Daniel's smile was young, bright, and impossible. The photograph was older than Maya. Linda found Maya still beside the closet. She did not knock. The door pushed open with her hip. In one hand, she carried a clipboard. In the other, Zeke's afternoon chart. Her eyes moved first to the jacket, then to the photograph, then to Maya's hand. Nothing in her face softened. What are you doing? Linda asked. Maya lowered the picture. I was helping him with his closet. Linda stepped inside. Closets do not need feelings. They need order. She took the jacket sleeve between two fingers, like it smelled. This should be in laundry. Maya shook her head. I do not think he wants it washed. Linda looked at Zeke. He sat on the bed, box against his knees. His eyes stayed on the photograph. Linda waited for him to explain himself. He did not. She turned back to Maya. You are not his granddaughter. You are not his social worker. You are a nursing assistant on probation. Maya's cheeks warmed. Yes, ma'am. Linda moved closer. Do you know what probation means? Maya said nothing. Linda answered for her. It means every mistake is still fresh. Every note still matters. Every supervisor still has an opinion. Her voice stayed low. That made it worse. Zeke's fingers tightened around the frame. He heard it. Maya knew he heard it. He did not lift his head. He did not rescue her. Maybe he could not. Maybe he would not ask a young woman to stand in fire for him. I found his name on the program, Maya said. Linda's smile returned, small and tired. You found a name. Congratulations. Maya held the photo closer to her chest. It said Sergeant Hayes. The chart says not to move him. The schedule says ceremony participant. Maybe today is for him. Linda's eyes went flat. Old men say things. Charts carry old words. Families request special treatment, then never visit. Veterans tell stories. Residents get confused. Maya looked toward Zeke. He is not confused. Linda snapped the folder shut. You have known him for what? A week. I have run this floor for 6 years. From the hall, a call bell rang. Then another. Linda pointed toward the sound. That is your job. Not decoding old service keepsakes, not building a case, not making this facility look disorganized because an old man has a picture. Maya swallowed. My mother needs me working. Her rent was due. Her car needed brakes. Linda knew enough to use silence. Good, Linda said. Then act employed. She held out her hand for the photograph. Maya did not move. Linda's voice dropped. Do not test me today. Not with visitors coming, not with cameras coming. Not over a man who probably forgot what he ate for breakfast. Zeke looked up then, not at Linda, at Maya. His eyes did not plead. That hurt more. Maya placed the photograph back on the box. Slowly, carefully, Linda watched, satisfied. The room became quiet again, the kind of quiet that makes people careful. Maya stepped away from the closet. Her hands were empty. Her pocket was not. After Linda left, the room did not relax. Her words stayed behind, stuck to the walls. Maya stood near the door with empty hands. Zeke sat on the bed, still as folded paper. The photograph rested on the box between his knees. Daniel's face looked up from under cracked glass. Maya should have gone. The call bells still rang. Shoes moved past the door. A tray clattered somewhere down the hall. She stayed anyway. "Mr. Hayes," she said softly, "was Daniel your friend?" Zeke's thumb moved over the picture. Friend was too small. Brother was too easy. He said nothing. Then he opened the box only an inch. Maya saw dark velvet. She saw the edge of a folded flag. She saw letters tied with a faded cord. Zeke touched the inside lid. Something was carved there, shallow and careful. Daniel Price. Never leave him behind. Maya looked at the words. Her throat tightened. Zeke closed the box before she could see more. He was not confused. He was not empty. His silence had a shape. It had a name. It had a grave somewhere no hallway chart could hold. "Did you promise him?" Maya asked. Zeke kept his eyes on the latch. After a long moment, he nodded once. Then he spoke without raising his head. "A man dies twice." Maya did not move. Zeke's voice scraped out again. First when he stops breathing, then when no one says his name. Maya looked at Daniel's smile. The room felt smaller. Zeke laid one shaking hand over the photograph. He had not been silent because he forgot. He had been silent because remembering cost too much. He had kept it for 50 years. Linda returned with Troy and a laundry cart. The cart squeaked through the doorway first. Metal frame, plastic bin, one wheel dragging. Zeke sat on the edge of the bed, box across his knees, photograph tucked beneath his hand. Maya stood near the water tray. She knew that look on Linda's face. It was not anger. It was cleaning. "We are clearing personal clutter," Linda said. "Visitors cannot see loose items everywhere." Zeke looked at the cart, then at the box. His fingers tightened around the worn wood. Troy reached for the closet. He pulled out the old jacket and held it by the shoulders. "This thing carries a lot of age," he muttered. Maya stepped forward. "Please be careful with that." Linda did not turn. Laundry or storage. Nothing sits out today. Zeke rose from the bed before anyone asked him. Slowly. One palm pressed on the mattress. The other stayed on the box. His knees shook under the cardigan. The photograph slid and nearly fell. Maya caught it against the blanket. Zeke looked at her, then back at Linda. He did not speak. Not yet. Linda pointed at the box. "That, too." Zeke shook his head once. It was small, almost missed. Linda saw it and smiled. "Mr. Hayes, I am not asking. We cannot have residents guarding old containers during an event. Is there medication inside? Food? Something sharp?" Zeke's jaw moved. "No." "Then it can go on the cart," Linda said. Maya held the photograph against her chest. "He asked me not to let anyone throw it away." Linda finally looked at her. "And I asked you to work. Which request pays your rent?" The room went still. Even Troy stopped moving. Maya's hand lowered by half. Zeke heard it all. His eyes stayed on the latch. Linda reached down. Zeke pulled the box closer. His fingers slipped over the brass corner. For 1 second, the room became only hands. Linda's clean nails, Zeke's shaking knuckles, Maya's frozen grip on the picture, Troy's jacket bunched under one arm. Then Linda took the box by the side and lifted. Zeke tried to hold it, not hard enough to fight, just hard enough to say no without words. The box scraped across his cardigan. The brass latch clicked against his ring. His breath caught. Linda pulled once more. The box came free. Zeke stood with both hands empty. "Do not make this dramatic," Linda said. "Old service stories do not get special storage." She set the box on the laundry cart beside towels and used sheets. Troy gave a small laugh. "Maybe there is treasure in there." Linda glanced at him. If there were, somebody would have claimed it by now. The sentence landed cold. Maya felt it in her teeth. The cart shifted. The box slid against the plastic bin. Its lid opened a finger's width. Maya saw dark velvet inside. She saw a folded edge of cloth. She saw a small metal shape before the lid fell shut again. On the top corner, beneath Linda's thumbprint, Maya noticed an engraving. Ezekiel Hayes, service, honor. The words were faint, but real. Linda did not read them. Troy did not see them. Zeke saw Maya see them. His shoulders dropped, not with relief, but with fear. Linda pushed the cart toward the door. Zeke took one step after it. His hand reached, then stopped in the air. He did not shout. He did not grab. He only stood there. trembling, while the last thing he had guarded for years rolled toward the hallway. Maya moved before she meant to. Her shoe crossed the tile. Linda looked back. "Do not," she said. One word. The warning worked. Maya stopped beside the bed, photograph still hidden against her uniform. The cart squeaked again. The box knocked once against the bin. Not clutter. The cart reached the nurse's station before Maya did. Linda parked it beside the counter and reached for the sign in book. The wooden box sat under a folded towel, not hidden well enough. Zeke followed from his room, slower now, one hand on the wall rail. Maya stayed close, the photograph flat inside her pocket. She could feel its cracked corner through the fabric. A cream envelope lay partly under the chart binder. Maya noticed the seal first. Not corporate, not nursing home paper, dark ink, heavy stock. It had slipped from the side pocket of the box when Linda dropped the towel over it. The front carried Zeke's full name, typed cleanly. Sergeant Ezekiel Hayes, room 214. Maya picked it up. Linda's hand came down at once. "Give me that." Maya held it only a second longer. "It is addressed to him." Linda took it anyway. Everything involving this facility comes through the desk. She tore the flap wider and pulled out 2 pages. Zeke stopped beside the wall rail. His eyes went to the paper, not Linda. The first page had formal lines and a printed header. Linda read just enough to feel safe. Ceremony confirmation, visiting party, presentation at noon, common room. She exhaled through her nose. C, general event information. Maya looked at the second page folded behind it. There is more. Linda did not look down. There is always more paper. That does not mean more truth. Maya pointed once, careful not to touch. His name is on the envelope. Linda smiled at the word name. Residents get mail. Veterans get mail. People get old letters and think they are appointments. She tapped the page with one nail. What matters is the room, the timing, and the visitors, not whatever story he attached to it. Troy watched from the laundry cart and said nothing. The hallway felt suddenly narrow. Zeke's hand opened against the rail, then closed again. He did not ask for the letter. He did not correct her. Maya saw the small surrender and hated it. The paper was right there. The truth was right there. Linda slid the pages into the binder under blank forms. The second sheet stayed folded. Its bottom edge showed one line before it disappeared. Honoree, Sergeant Ezekiel Hayes. Maya saw it. So did Zeke, standing there. Linda shut the binder. She never read the second page. Linda rolled the cart toward storage, and Troy followed with the jacket. The nurse's station emptied for 3 breaths. Maya stayed by the counter, pretending to straighten blank forms. The binder sat under Linda's clipboard, not fully closed. From inside, the folded second page had slipped halfway out, showing the same formal ink. Maya looked down the hall and saw Linda speaking near the activity room piano. Zeke stood by the rail, box gone, shoulders bowed, but his eyes stayed clear, and he saw the paper too. Maya slid one blank form aside and pulled the page free along its old crease. The line flashed before she folded it. Honoree, Sergeant Ezekiel Hayes. Her fingers shook harder than his had. She did not read the rest because reading took time, and time made noise. She tucked the page into the deep pocket of her scrub top behind the cracked photograph. Then she smoothed the binder flat and placed another blank form over it, exactly where Linda had left it. Zeke watched from the rail without smiling, speaking, or lifting his hand. He only gave the smallest nod. Maya breathed once, feeling the paper press against her chest. She kept it. Linda came back from storage with the wooden box under one arm. Troy carried the army jacket like a bag of old laundry. Maya saw them from the nurse's station and felt the paper inside her pocket burn against her chest. Zeke stood by the rail, breathing carefully, eyes fixed on the box. Linda stopped in front of him. "Since you want an audience," she said, "we will handle this properly." Maya stepped forward. "Handle what?" Linda looked at her once. That was enough. Maya stopped with one hand on the counter. Zeke did not move. He had not asked for the box back. He had only followed it with his eyes. And Linda made that look like disobedience. "Mr. Hayes needs to apologize for disrupting the common room," Linda said, "to staff, to residents, to our guests." Her voice carried down the hall before anyone could refuse. By the time they reached the activity room, the coffee stain had been covered. A new cloth sat on the table. The cookies were rearranged in a bright circle. The flag stood near the piano, clean and straight. A front chair remained empty, without a name card. 2 women from the administrative office waited near the bulletin board. A man in a dark suit held a folder. Another stood by the doorway checking his watch. Nobody knew what to do with their hands. Linda entered first. She held the box at waist height. Troy followed with the jacket. Zeke came last, slower than both of them, walking without help because no one had offered it. Maya moved behind him. She wanted to take his elbow. She wanted to say his name out loud. Linda's eyes cut back and pinned her silent. Not now. Residents turned in their chairs. Mrs. Ellis lowered her knitting. Mr. Watkins muted the television. Janet stood by the refreshment table with paper cups stacked too high. The man in the suit glanced at Zeke, then at Linda, unsure which person mattered. Linda noticed that glance and lifted her chin. "We are resolving a small resident issue," she said. "Nothing to worry about." "Then why is everyone watching?" Maya almost said it. She did not. The page in her pocket pressed harder with every breath. Honoree, Sergeant Ezekiel Hayes. The words had weight now. They weighed more than Linda's clipboard, more than her badge, more than the clean room she loved. Zeke stood beside the front row, hands empty, eyes lowered. Linda placed the box on the piano bench. She dropped the jacket beside it. She did not fold it. She dropped it. "This was found during room clearing," she said. "Personal items cannot be dragged into common areas during scheduled programs. Do we understand?" Troy nodded too quickly. Janet looked down. The residents stayed quiet. The guests watched in confusion. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. "Mr. Hayes," Linda said, faced the room. Zeke lifted his head. He turned slowly toward the chairs. His cardigan hung flat where the box had been. His right hand trembled against his side. Linda stood close enough for him to smell her mint gum. "Go ahead. Tell everyone you understand the rule." Maya took one step. Linda did not even turn this time. She only raised two fingers, small and sharp, like scissors closing. Maya stopped again. Her job, her mother, her rent, all of it stood between her and one man with no box in his hands. Zeke glanced at her once. No blame, no request. That made the silence heavier. He looked at the flag. He looked past the guests and past Linda, straight to the flag. Then his mouth opened. "I moved it from the waste bin," he said. His voice was quiet, but the room caught every word. Linda's face tightened. "That is not an apology." Zeke looked back at her. He gave no excuse. He gave no story. He just stood there while the room waited for him to shrink. Linda smiled for the guests. It was the kind of smile people use when cameras might appear. "Some residents get attached to objects," she said. "They confuse memories with permission." A chair creaked near the wall. Mrs. Ellis looked at the box. The man with the folder stopped checking his watch. Maya touched the hidden page through her scrub top. The room felt smaller, tighter, like a door had just closed. Linda waited for Zeke to apologize. He did not. His eyes stayed on the flag and his empty hands hung at his sides. The guests shifted near the doorway. The residents watched from their chairs. Linda heard the silence and decided to fill it with control. "This is what happens when boundaries are ignored," she said. "A facility cannot function on moods, memories, and small personal keepsakes." She touched the wooden box with one finger. "This is not a museum. It is not a battlefield. It is not a place for every old war story to take over the room." Maya felt the page in her pocket crease under her palm. She looked at the box on the piano bench, then at Zeke. His face had gone still in a way that frightened her. His face was not blank. It looked locked, like a door had closed from the inside. She could almost hear Linda walking towards something she would never be able to walk back from. "Mr. Hayes," Linda said, "you embarrassed my staff this morning. You spilled coffee, touched the display, left your room without direction, and now you are refusing a simple apology." She turned toward the guests. "We respect all residents here, but some need reminders. Some need firmer handling." Mrs. Ellis made a small sound. Linda ignored it. Troy stared at the floor. Janet held one paper cup until it bent. The man with the folder frowned but said nothing. Nobody moved. A fork dropped from a dessert plate by the refreshment table, and even that sounded afraid. Nobody picked it up. Not then. Linda mistook that silence for agreement. Still, Maya's throat tightened. People could still hear. Zeke finally looked at Linda. His face did not show anger. It showed grief so old it no longer asked permission. "The flag should not touch waste," he said. That was all. One sentence. No defense. No pleading. No history. The room seemed to lean toward him. Linda laughed once, soft enough to seem professional. "The flag is fine, Mr. Hayes. What is not fine is you acting like this whole morning belongs to you." She lifted the jacket from the bench and held it out. Faded cloth, torn cuff, worn patch. This does not make you special, neither does that box. Every hallway here has somebody clinging to something they think matters. Maya's hand closed over the hidden photograph. Daniel's smile pressed against her ribs. Zeke's right hand trembled harder now, but he kept it at his side. Linda lowered the jacket onto the bench, not gently. Then she pointed to the far corner near the television. "You can sit over there until the visitors finish." Quietly, away from the front. We cannot let sentimental clutter ruin a ceremony. The word hit the room hard. Ceremony. The guests looked at each other. Maya looked at the front doors. Outside, through the glass, dark uniforms crossed the walkway. Shoes stopped on the mat. A shadow fell over the lobby tile. That was when the front doors opened. The front doors opened, and every head turned, except Maya. She was looking at Zeke. He stood near the piano bench with nothing in his hands, jacket beside his stolen box, face lifted toward the flag. The uniforms in the lobby had not reached the room yet. Their footsteps were close, heavy, measured. Linda straightened at once. She smoothed her blazer and stepped toward the doorway. Maya felt the page in her pocket bend under her fingers. Honoree, Sergeant Ezekiel Hayes. Behind it, the cracked photograph pressed against her ribs. Daniel and Zeke, 2 young soldiers, one living, one carried. Linda glanced back and saw Maya's hand at her pocket. The warning came without words. Her eyes narrowed, her chin dipped once. Stay quiet, stay employed, stay small. Maya heard all of it. Her mother's prescriptions, the overdue rent notice, the bus rides before sunrise, the job she could not afford to lose. Then Zeke looked at her. He was not asking, begging, or even hoping. He only looked calm and tired, like a man who had spent 50 years learning not to need rescue. That broke something in her. Her father had once told her that respect was not a speech. It was what you did when nobody powerful wanted you to do it. The paper was small, but in that moment, it weighed more than every rule Linda had ever used against him that morning. Linda turned back toward the guests. "Everything is under control," she said. Maya's hand closed around the folded page. Was it? The room still smelled like coffee and fear. The box still sat on the bench. Zeke still stood alone. Maya stepped forward. Maya had taken one step when the uniforms reached the threshold. The room changed before anyone spoke. Black shoes crossed the tile in clean rhythm. Pressed sleeves moved under the lobby light. A polished belt buckle caught the window glare. The activity room did not feel like a nursing home anymore. It felt like a place where people remembered how to stand. The first officer stopped beside the sign and table. He was tall, gray at the temples, with ribbons on his dress coat. 2 younger officers stood behind him. A woman in uniform carried a slim folder. Their faces were calm. Not warm exactly, but prepared. That was worse for Linda, though she did not know it yet. Linda smiled before she understood. "Welcome to Morning Pines," she said. "We were just preparing the room. I am Linda Carver, shift supervisor. Our administrator is on the way." The officer looked at her hand, then at the room. He did not shake it. The silence moved. People noticed. Troy straightened near the coffee table. Janet lowered the bent paper cup. Maya stood halfway between the piano and the doorway. Her hand stayed in her pocket, wrapped around the folded page. The word honoree pressed into her palm. Zeke had not turned toward the officers yet. His eyes remained on the flag, as if looking too soon might make them disappear. His jacket lay beside the box on the piano bench. Linda stood between him and both. "We have seating arranged for the visitors," Linda said, filling the quiet. "If you are here for the ceremony, we can start once management arrives." The officer's eyes moved to the front row. One empty chair, no name card, then to the wooden box, then to Zeke. He saw more in 1 second than Linda had seen all morning. "Who is in charge of resident placement?" he asked. Linda lifted her chin. "I am." "Good," he said. His voice was low enough that everyone leaned in. The woman officer opened the folder. "So for." Paper slid once. Clean. Final. The sound carried. Linda gave another practiced smile. "We had one resident issue, but it is contained. Nothing should delay your visit." The old gentleman became attached to personal items. She gestured toward Zeke without using his name. "We are handling it with respect." Maya felt heat rise behind her eyes. Respect. The word did not fit in Linda's mouth. Mrs. Ellis looked from Zeke to the officers. The man in the dark suit stepped back. He had stopped checking his watch. The room was learning to listen. The officer did not look at Linda's gesture. He looked at Zeke directly. "Sir," he said. "One word." Zeke's shoulders lifted with a breath. Slowly, he turned from the flag. His face was still, but his eyes changed. It was not relief, and it was not surprise. It was recognition. The room saw it happen and did not understand. Linda noticed the officer's tone and moved quickly. "Mr. Hayes has been difficult this morning," she said. "He may not follow everything being said." The officer turned his head. "Just a little." That was enough. Linda stopped halfway through her next smile. The air tightened. Not loud, not dramatic. Worse, official. Maya pulled the folded page from her pocket. Linda saw the motion and snapped, "Maya!" The officer's eyes shifted to the paper. Maya froze. Her badge felt heavy against her scrub top. Her father's voice rose in memory. "Say the name. Always say the name." She looked at Zeke. He gave no signal. That made her braver. "This belongs to him," Maya said. Her voice shook. She held out the page. Linda stepped toward her, but the woman officer stepped first. She did not move quickly. She only moved far enough to make Linda stop. Linda stopped. The page changed hands. The woman officer read the line, then looked at the tall officer. He already knew. Linda gave a small laugh. There must be confusion. "We have several veterans here. The ceremony is a general appreciation event." She reached toward the folder. No one gave it to her. The younger officers did not move. Troy stared at his shoes. Janet put the cup down. The guests went silent differently now. Cleaner. Sharper. The tall officer faced the room. His voice did not rise. It did not need to. "We are here for the noon presentation and recognition ceremony." He paused. Linda's smile thinned into nothing. His eyes settled on Zeke Hayes. Then the officer asked the question that split the morning open. "Where is Sergeant Hayes?" Every face turned toward Zeke. He did not step forward. He did not lift his hand. The officer already had his answer. The old man by the piano was not a problem to manage. He was the reason they had come. The officer moved past Linda. He did not step around her with apology. He simply walked past her. Linda shifted, then stopped. The woman officer stood beside Maya, holding the folded page. The younger officers looked at the box on the piano bench. One of them asked quietly, "Where is the medal case?" The question emptied Linda's face. No one answered. Troy stared at the jacket. Janet stared at Linda. The guests stared at the box. Zeke stared at the flag. Maya heard her own breathing. Too loud and too fast. She knew where the case was. Everyone did now. The thing Linda had called clutter sat under the room's best light. Maya stepped to the bench. Linda reached toward her. The tall officer said, "Ma'am, one word." Linda's hand stopped in the air. Maya lifted the wooden box with both hands. It was heavier than it looked. The weight did not come from the wood. It came from everything that had survived inside it. She placed it on the refreshment table, away from the coffee, away from the bent cups, beneath the flag Linda had wanted, straight for photographs. Zeke did not come closer. He stood where he was, trembling. The officer looked at him first. "May I, Sergeant?" Zeke's eyes lowered to the latch. After a long breath, he nodded. The officer opened the box. The lid rose with a soft crack. Dark velvet showed first, then a folded flag, edges sharp from care. Beside it rested a metal case, dark and worn at the corners. A ribbon lay under glass. A photograph sat tucked against the side. Two young soldiers smiled from another life, Daniel and Zeke. Under the photo was a letter, folded thin, the crease nearly white. The envelope Maya had hidden matched the letterhead inside. Same seal, same formal ink, same name that Linda had refused to read all morning in plain sight. Mrs. Ellis covered her mouth. The man with the folder removed his glasses. Troy's smirk disappeared completely. Janet set both hands against the table as if she might fall. Linda looked at the box, then at the officers, then at Zeke. Her lips moved once. Nothing came out. The silence had changed. It was no longer fear. It was recognition arriving late. The tall officer removed his cap. The younger officers followed. The room seemed to understand that motion before it understood the words. He turned toward Zeke, standing beside the piano in the gray cardigan, empty-handed no longer. "Sir," he said, "we are honored to stand before Sergeant Ezekiel Hayes, United States Army veteran, recipient of one of the nation's highest military honors, and the man named for today's ceremony." Linda's badge caught the light. Nobody looked at it. The officer lifted the photograph from the box and held it carefully. "And Private Daniel Price," he added, "whose name Sergeant Hayes asked us to speak today." Zeke closed his eyes. Maya did too, for 1 second. The room had ignored him all morning. Now it waited for him to breathe. Then they stood. Chairs scraped across the activity room floor. Some residents stood quickly. Others pushed slowly from their armrests. Mrs. Ellis rose with Janet supporting her elbow. Troy stood last. Linda remained half upright, as if her body had forgotten which side of the room held power. Zeke tried to stand straighter. His knees did not obey at once. Maya moved before Linda could stop her. She slipped one hand under his elbow and waited, not pulling, only offering weight. Zeke accepted it with a small breath. Together they straightened. His eyes stayed on the flag. He did not look at Linda or the box. He looked at the flag. The tall officer faced the room. "This ceremony will take place here," he said. "In this room." No one corrected him. No one offered a nicer space. The old piano, the vinyl chairs, the coffee table, the bulletin board, the crooked pins, the stain hidden under fresh cloth, all of it became part of the record. The room Linda had cleaned to erase him now had to hold his name. Linda stepped forwards. "Sir, perhaps we should wait for the administrator." The officer turned to her. "No." One word, clean, final. Linda stopped smiling. The woman officer placed the open box near the flag. Maya laid the folded page beside it. The photograph of Daniel and Zeke sat against the velvet, facing the room like a witness. The officer opened his folder. Sergeant Hayes requested that Private Daniel Price be named before any recognition began. Zeke closed his eyes. Maya felt his elbow tremble. "Daniel Price," the officer said. A young man in the back removed his hat. Mrs. Ellis whispered the name after him. Daniel Price. For the first time all morning, someone repeated what Zeke had spent 50 years protecting. Zeke looked at the photograph, then at the flag. His mouth moved once. Maya heard it because she was close. Kept him. That was all. The officer nodded as if it were a full report. Then he turned toward Linda, Troy, Janet, the guests, and every resident who had watched the old man stand alone. "Before we begin," he said, "we need one detail clarified." Linda's hands folded around her clipboard. The officer looked at the empty front chair, then at the hallway, then back at her. No one looked away from the truth now. Who moved Sergeant Hayes out of the ceremony room? The question stayed in the room, clean and steady. Who moved Sergeant Hayes out of the ceremony room? Linda looked at the empty front chair, then she looked at the open box, the jacket, the folded flag, and the photograph of Daniel Price. For the first time that morning, her clipboard did not give her anything to say. Maya stepped forward before fear could pull her back. "I walked him to his room," she said softly, "but I did it because I was told to. I should have spoken sooner." The room did not turn against Maya. It turned toward the truth. Linda's face tightened. "That is not the full context," she said. "He was causing confusion." The officer looked at Zeke. "Sergeant Hayes, were you asked to leave this room?" Zeke's hand trembled at his side. Maya stood close, but she did not touch him. The whole room waited, not with impatience now, but with respect. Zeke looked at the flag. Then he looked at the photograph. "I was moved," he said. Daniel was moved too. No one understood the second sentence at first. Then the officer looked down at the old picture, and his expression softened with pain. Daniel Price had been carried for 50 years in a wooden box, in a folded letter, in a promise that one quiet man refused to break. If Zeke was pushed aside, then Daniel was pushed aside with him. The officer nodded slowly. Then Daniel comes back to the front with him. He turned toward the room. "Sergeant Hayes will sit in the front chair. His flag will remain beside him. His medal case will remain open only with his permission. His friend, Private Daniel Price, will be named with honor. That is why we are here." Maya helped bring the chair forward. Janet came over without being asked and brushed a hand across the seat, as if she could wipe away the morning itself. Troy picked up the jacket, then stopped. His face had gone pale. He held it with both hands now, carefully, the way people hold something after they finally understand they almost dropped a piece of someone else's heart. "May I fold this, sir?" Troy asked. Zeke looked at him for a long moment. Then he gave one small nod. Troy folded the jacket slowly. It was not perfect, but it was careful and respectful. Janet placed the photograph of Daniel and Zeke against the open box. Mrs. Ellis whispered Daniel Price again, and then Mr. Watkins repeated it too. One by one, the residents said the name softly, until it moved through the activity room like a prayer no one had planned. Daniel Price. Zeke lowered himself into the front chair. Maya stayed beside him until he was steady. When she started to step back, Zeke lifted one hand and touched her wrist. Not tightly, just enough to make her pause. "Thank you," he said. 2 words. Rough, small, but they reached her deeper than any speech could have. Maya blinked hard and nodded. She wanted to say she was sorry. She wanted to say she should have been braver earlier, but Zeke's hand had already let go, and somehow his thank you carried forgiveness before she knew how to ask for it. The tall officer began the ceremony again, this time without hurry. He spoke of service, sacrifice, loyalty, and promises kept across time. He did not make the story sound shiny. He did not turn pain into decoration. He simply told the truth gently enough for the room to receive it. He spoke of a young soldier named Daniel Price, who had once put his hand on Zeke Hayes' shoulder in a dusty photograph, smiling with a future still ahead of him. He spoke of a promise made in the hardest hour of life. He spoke of Sergeant Zeke Hayes, who carried that promise through 50 years of quiet mornings, hospital walls, nursing home halls, and rooms where people mistook silence for emptiness. Zeke sat still as the words came. His eyes stayed open, his hand rested on the edge of the wooden box. The tremor was still there, but now it looked different to the people watching. It did not look like weakness anymore. It looked like the cost of carrying something sacred for a very long time. Then the officer turned to him. "Sergeant Hayes, today we recognize your service, your courage, and your devotion to the man you refused to let history forget. On behalf of everyone gathered here, we thank you." The officers raised their hands in salute. For a moment, nobody breathed. Then Zeke lifted his own hand, slowly, carefully. His fingers trembled near his brow. His elbow shook. Maya stood behind him with her hands folded, ready to help if he needed it, but he held the salute himself. The room rose with him in spirit, even those who could not stand on their feet. Linda stood near the piano, small in a room she had tried so hard to control. Her badge was straight, her blazer was neat, but order without kindness looked very different now. It looked empty. When the salute ended, the officer lowered his hand. The residents sat back down, some wiping their eyes, some staring at the floor, some looking at Zeke as if they were seeing a neighbor for the first time. Linda finally stepped forward. Her voice was different, quieter. "Sergeant Hayes," she said, "I was wrong." The words did not fix the morning. They did not erase the box being taken, the jacket being dropped, the way he had been told to sit away from the front. But they were words she should have said, and she said them where everyone could hear. "I treated your memories like clutter," she continued. "I treated your silence like confusion. I treated your dignity like something that could be moved out of sight. I am sorry." Zeke looked at her. He did not smile. He did not punish her either. He only rested his hand on the box. "Say his name," he said. Linda swallowed. "Daniel Price." Zeke nodded once. That was all he asked. After the ceremony, the activity room did not empty right away. People stayed, not for refreshments and not for photographs. They stayed because something true had happened, and truth makes people move more slowly. Residents came one by one to look at the photograph. Some told Zeke their own names. Some told him names of brothers, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, and neighbors they still carried quietly. The room that had ignored him in the morning became a room full of remembered people by afternoon. Maya walked Zeke back to room 214 later that day. This time, no one hurried them. His wooden box rested safely in his lap. His jacket hung over her arm, folded with care. When they reached his room, Maya placed the box on the nightstand and waited. Zeke opened it himself. He took out the photograph and held it toward her. Daniel and Zeke looked young again under the warm light. "He was louder than me," Zeke said. Maya smiled through tired eyes. "I believe that." "Always talking," Zeke said, "always singing. Could make anybody laugh." For the first time all day, his mouth lifted. It was small, just enough for him to notice. Maya sat in the chair beside the bed. She did not ask for a full story. She did not push. She simply stayed. And because she stayed, Zeke gave her one piece at a time. A laugh on a dusty road. A shared can of peaches. A letter Daniel never got to send. A promise Zeke had made when the world was falling apart around him. Outside the window, the flag moved in the Georgia wind. It pulled once, settled, then pulled again. Zeke watched it, and Maya watched him. The silence between them no longer felt empty. It felt honored. In the days that followed, Morning Pines changed in small ways first. The Veterans Board was repaired. The empty frame was filled with the photograph Zeke chose, not the one staff requested. A second frame went beside it for Daniel Price. The bulletin board no longer looked like decoration. It looked like a promise. Linda changed too, though not all at once. Real change rarely arrives like thunder. It arrives in quieter choices. She knocked before entering rooms. She read the second page before making decisions. She learned that a resident's keepsake was not automatically clutter. She learned that a quiet person might be carrying more history than the loudest person in the building. Troy stopped joking about old boxes. Janet started asking residents about the photographs on their nightstands. Maya kept working, not because she was fearless, but because courage had shown her what kind of caregiver she wanted to become. She still made mistakes. Everyone does. But after that day, she understood that kindness was not extra work. Kindness was the work. And Zeke, who had spent so many years being called quiet, became known for one sentence. A man dies twice. First when he stops breathing, then when no one says his name. People repeated it gently. Families wrote it down. Staff remembered it when they passed closed doors. And every Veterans Appreciation Week after that, the ceremony began the same way. Not with Linda's clipboard, not with a camera, not with a polished speech. It began with names. Zeke Hayes, Daniel Price, and then every name the room had promised not to forget. The lesson from that day was simple, but it stayed with everyone who witnessed it. Age is not emptiness. Silence is not confusion. A trembling hand can still be carrying a promise stronger than anything in the room. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is slow down before we decide we understand someone. Read the whole page. Ask one more gentle question. Look at the person before looking at the problem. A small act of respect can protect a lifetime of dignity. Respect does not begin with a ceremony. It begins in ordinary rooms, beside ordinary chairs, with ordinary people choosing to see each other clearly. Responsibility means admitting when we have been careless. Forgiveness means giving someone room to become better. And kindness means treating people as if their stories matter, even before we know those stories ourselves. Zeke did not need the whole building to become perfect. He only needed the truth to be spoken. He needed Daniel's name to be remembered. And when that finally happened, the old wooden box was no longer something he had to guard alone. It became what it had always been, a promise kept.